Oh yeah, Weavly. Weavly claims to have a no-code platform that automatically turns software designs into functional and clickable prototypes.
It's more than claiming, though.
Oh, sorry?
It's more than claiming we have it. I promise.
Oh, that's a good one. I like this one. Good, Florian. How are you?
Fine, how are you, Kurt?
All right, so it's not a claim, you have the solution.
Yeah, you can try it out if you want.
That's nice.
Let's put it up on the screen and I'll give you a lap.
I just give you the 10. All right, I'm off. I'm off. 10 minutes. Have a go, Florian.
Thanks,
Enjoy.
Kurt. Way too many digital products are launched before they're first validated with end users. For the mobile market alone, that's a waste of $96 billion per year in unused mobile applications. Across the software industry, 80% of software projects fail. The question is, why is it that bad? Today, if you want to validate a digital product, you're basically stuck in between a rock and a hard place. You can either validate really fast, but with bad data. You have clickable prototypes, put them in the hand of a couple of users, see how they click through images, and ask them what they think about it. On the other hand, you can start building an MVP or first version of your product. You get great insights, Google Analytics, Hotjar, long-term usability studies, but of course, that takes a lot of time, costs a lot of money. In between that rock and that hard place, you have what we call the innovation dead zone. Cost of iteration goes up, speed of iteration goes down. It basically kills your innovation, and that's the point where you make bad assumptions about what the user wants, what the user needs. We solve that issue by combining the best of both worlds. The speed of testing with mockups, with the insights and the functionality of testing with a first version of your product. In essence, we automate a big part, an important part, of the first development of a new digital product. When I say we, I mean my co-founder and I, Jesse. We're both PhDs from the computer science department at the VU. That's not the Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam, there's also one in Brussels. In fact, we're a spin-off of the VUB. Jesse is responsible for everything regarding technical development. It's based on his PhD that we're developing this, and I take all the rest on my end, which is business development, sales, marketing, and as I'm standing today here, of course, fundraising as well. Now, you might see the left part of the slide and roll your eyes like, okay, two technical guys starting a startup. Where's the sort of the commercial talent and the know-how of building a company? That's why we surrounded ourselves with people that know how to build a company, namely Peter Verhasselt from Series, Aurélien Troonbeeks, which was our coach at Started at KBC, and of course Stijn Christiaans, which I think calls himself Chief Data Citizen nowadays, of Collibra. There's an obvious link. We come from more or less the same department. I've actually had class with Peter, one of the co-founders of Collibra, and so we have Stan on WhatsApp to sort of ask him questions and make sure that we take the right decisions when we need to. So what is Weavly precisely? We take designs as input, so boxes and arrows of your user interface, and our no-code platform is going to generate two things. On one hand, we'll generate fully functional prototypes, mobile applications, dashboards, backends, your configuration of your database, you name it, everything to have something that works and that you can put in the hands of your users to do long-term studies. On the other hand, we also collect a gold mine of data, because those prototypes are only as valuable as the insights you get out of them. Where are your users looking at? What are they clicking on? How are they feeling? What functionality are they using? And more importantly, what functionality aren't they using? The niche beachhead market for that today is digital design agencies. Agencies that work for larger corporates to set up innovation tracks, do UI, UX of new digital products, and launch them into the market. I say this is a niche market because there aren't that many of them around either. This is certainly enough to build out a nice business, but these are not unicorn-level types of ARR that you will get out of digital design studios. To do that, we're still leaving a lot of value on the table today. And to illustrate that point, when I was coming into the room here, I had a discussion with Stan from Climate Camp, which came up to me and said, like, you're the guy from Weavly. Do you actually also generate a part of the code? We have a lot of stuff in design, and as soon as we change the design, there's a mismatch between what we have in design and what there's in the code. And then I think the fact that Stan comes to me right before my pitch proves the next slide, namely that the next step, and that's the big thing, is generating standalone code bases. So we generate a fully functional prototype, React, JavaScript, Node.js on the back end, but it's black box. As a developer, you can't dig into that code, start customizing, and build out that version 1, version 2, version 3 of your product. We have the code. We know how to generate it. We just need to get working and get that part going so that Stan can change his design. And when he changes his design, automatically we redeploy the code and we update the version that is in production. First, let's go through testing, though. Avoid having problems, of course. And the market for that is a lot bigger. Basically, any innovative enterprise, and I think most of you will agree that Climate Camp is one, that has in-house software development, needs a design part, needs to do user research, product management, and needs to do development. Those three people, we surround them around our platform as a single source of truth. And with a penetration rate of 4.4%, you get to those numbers which allow you to be a unicorn and take all of the value out of that table. So the question, of course, is what's our plan? When are we going to market with this? So there's two clear phases. We started in January of this year, so we spun off of the university in January of this year. We're in currently phase 1, which means that it's open beta. We have 110 users in open beta today. You can sort of go to the Figma plugin store, which I'll come back to later, install the plugin, start building stuff on our platform. The goal there is to tackle that problem solution. We're doing paid proof of concepts before going to phase 2, which will start as of September, where we'll tackle product market fit, so have a premium version of the platform go live, as well as start on the R&D phase of the code generation to tackle that problem that Stan has. Okay, so when we're going to market, how are we going to market? So Figma, for those of you that don't do software design, is sort of the next big thing in software design. It's a huge platform, 1 million active users, $10 billion valuation, is eating up the entire market. If you don't know them, it's a really nice entrepreneurial story. You had a lot of different profiles on there. So digital design agencies use Figmas, startup, innovation hubs, but also larger corporate enterprises with in-house software development. I wouldn't say it's a cult, but Figma users adore the platform. There's communities all over the place, Slack, Discord, Friends of Figma, which are sort of live meetup events. We have one in Flanders I went to last week. And so the goal is to do bottom-up sales, really get into the community, have them love our product as much as they love Figma, which go hand in hand. And at the moment, we're also doing top-down, of course, because we're still in an early phase. So how are we funding this? We're 2 people at the moment. We desperately need more people to start working on this. Phase 1, we managed to fund it through a lump sum subsidy of 50K from Vlaio, so the Agentschap Innoveren en Ondernemen, innovatieve startersteun, for those of you for which that rings a bell. Phase 2, we're looking at a pre-seed of 540K, of which we already secured 300K in convertible notes from Cubic and Brussels Finance and Invest, and we aim to leverage that with a subsidy part as well from Innoveris. The goal, of course, is to expand the team. So we have a technical lead, which is Jessa, a business development, which is myself. We need somebody in the back end. We need a front-end engineer, which also has affinities with UI and UX. That's sort of the sheep with 7 feet. That's how you say it in French. I don't know if that translates to English. And we need growth hackers to start getting that inbound, bottom-up sales machine going. At this point, you might be asking yourself, okay, but if you already sort of secured most of your pre-seed, what are you doing here? First of all, I'm also a very big fan of getting money, like my predecessor. I think the goal is to squeeze time, right? So the more we can leverage money now, the more we can squeeze time in that crucial period between our pre-seed and our seed, which we envision in a year and a half. So the cash part will be used to supercharge the growth that we have planned. With that additional cash, we can invest more in marketing, invest more in sales. I think product-wise, we're covered. And of course, for the kind part, there's a lot of stuff for which we're looking towards Delaware. The obvious things are sort of marketing and front-end development, DPO as well. We're a platform as a service. Technically, you could build whatever you want on our platform. If you can draw it in Figma, you can bring it to life using our platform. which of course has some implications with regards to protecting the end users about which data is being collected, how it's being treated. So we need advice from DPOs there. And then there's some obvious UI and UX work that we need. You might have noticed by the ugliness of my slides that we're both engineers. I've had discussions with Yves, the design lead at Delaware International, I believe, which also showed interest in the project and in the platform. Which brings me into the partnership part. I think Delaware could be a potential customer of our technology. Yves uses Figma internally, already does prototypes using Figma, has indicated that being able to go further in the prototyping and actually also generate code is something that would be awesome to use. But I believe that the majority of Delaware's customers could also benefit from having those innovation cycles and really testing out your products before you bring them to market as a potential adventure as well. So I thank you all for your attention. I definitely hope there's questions. If there's questions afterwards or you want to have a meeting, feel free to just hit me up and book something in my agenda. I'm always open to have a chat.
Why do you need a sales guy?
I need a growth hacker. I'll still be doing the sales. I love selling.
You covered a great story, yeah?
Thanks.
Really, really. And Yves is my colleague. And he called me about this and he said, oh man, that really would help our clients because now, and yes, the Figma is great. They adore it in the team. And the clients adore it because they can work in Figma and they can see immediately before they start building. The only thing that was missing, we cannot fill in the fields. We cannot actually see the graphs. And that's where you come in.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, I see the point.
So what about my slides as a UI expert? All right, or
I'm just a colleague, man.
Okay.
Just a colleague. All right.
Is that the way of saying that I need to first write an invoice to Delaware?
Good point. Audience. What about you? The questions. And streaming audience, what about you? So the two questions on the right side, please fill in because I'm so curious on this one, Florian. You had a good story, man. Come on, Wim. Lounge them.
Okay. Oh. I don't have to sell you anymore, that's for sure. So let's go to the questions. Yes, go ahead.
Thanks for the good story indeed. Question around pricing strategy.
Yep.
I think it was on one of your slides. Did I recall correctly that you intend to price 3,000 euros per client? Was it per client or per user?
So we're not super clear on pricing, which is why I didn't include it. The idea we have at the moment is for the design part, right? So you have your design, you want to start prototyping and user researching. That's 125 euros per month per seat, which goes into the direction of what a design team would typically pay for prototyping tools and user researching tools, given that we combine both. If you want to start generating code, at that point, we service your entire sort of product squad, and then we're looking at 1,000 euros per month per seat, and we're taking an average of 2 seats per account. So the 30,000 euros for the design agencies, that's minus the code part, because most design agencies that we're talking to sort of offhand the code development to their clients with the third parties.
Okay, thank you.
Frank?
So Florian, I gave Quincy of Hello Mentor a compliment of being the best entertainer, so it's fair to give you the compliment that in my opinion it's the best presentation you gave today. So
oh, thanks.
Let's start with that. To be honest, also to Thierry and Wim, we have been cheating a little bit since Nubian was already in contact with Wavely. Obviously we are a big fan. You elaborated on ICP. Can you also explain who you target as persona within the ICP?
So for the moment, there's two people. There's the UI designer is inherently part of that cycle because he's the one that builds the Figma design. He's the one that will be using our plugin most likely. So there's the UI designer, and you have your UX researcher, which is going to use the dashboard and analytics part, which is using actually the dashboard analytics part of the platform to gather those insights and tailor the design and the product. That could also be a product manager because in the end, a good product manager also is partially a researcher, right? And the third part is the developer, which will be using the generated code. It's really important that we have them on board because they'll be using and customizing generated code, which is not easy to convince. I'm a developer. They're difficult people, let's put it that way. So those are the three people that will be using our platform and typically our user personas.
Thank you.
Michel?
Two quick questions. The first one is regarding the users. So, do you interact with the end users, like a random sample of people to test the design, or is this done completely in-house without touching potential end users?
When you say you mean our users, right?
The users. See, even on that sentence, you say better understand the users. So to understand the users, you need to talk to the users.
Yeah. Well, not necessarily, and that's a highly controversial point. So you have moderated and unmoderated user research. In the moderated part, you sit together or you Zoom together, you have them test stuff out, and you sort of interrupt them, ask why are they doing this, or you don't interrupt and you let them speak out loud and you have a session afterwards. That's what you would say. Indeed, you sit together. It allows you to sort of get the elephants out of the room and the very big problems with your design to get them out of there. At some point, you can pivot into unmoderated, where you basically send out a link to the prototype, have people test it out without you being there or being present to ask questions. There's plenty of tools that allow you to do that today. Given a Figma design and sort of a Google Forms-like interface, ask a couple of questions, have them click through the thing. Where we differ, of course, is that you can send around a link which looks like a complete normal product. You can decide to have qualitative questions beside that, but you gather data which is a lot more rich because people use it as if it would be an end product. To give you an example, this might not be super telling. It's a case we did with Immoscope. I think the name says it all, right? They're redoing their platform. They wanted to test out how do people search for houses. They were working together with Buffalo, the innovation agency, so that they had 100 people ready to test out a prototype. And the big problem is that the way people search for houses is that they provide some filters, right? I'm looking for a house in Antwerp, okay? They look at the results, they search through a couple of houses, go back, put some extra filters, go back to the result. If you do that with a clickable mockup, that doesn't work because the filters aren't real. If you want to make them fake real as a designer, it would take you hours. Well, in our case, we send out the prototype using Buffalo, people click through it, and they got a great deal amount of insights from it. And actually, they're signing on for a year license as we speak.
Thank you. The second question is very simple. When we invest in companies, we like to know who is the boss. Do you already know who will be the boss?
Of our company?
Yeah.
Up until somebody says, like, okay, until I say there's probably somebody better than me, it's going to be me. But I don't have sort of founder-itis, right? I know that taking the investors on board, at some point, they might think, and I might think, okay, somebody's better at sort of managing the ship, and I'll be happy to just do sales calls and make sure that we hit those targets.
All right. Any other questions? Remarks? Yes?
Yeah, so if I understand correctly, your solution effectively allows to, amongst other things, take feedback on prototypes, right, by users. But companies typically already have some existing offering out there, which is also being used by users already, right? So does your solution allow to capture feedback of the product proposition that is already out there by the users as well? Or is it only in relation to the prototypes that your tool effectively allows to bring to the market quickly?
So the short answer is no. So we don't take into account insights that come from something that is already in production, which is the important part of adding that extra offering of generating code. Because as soon as we generate code, and our code or a modified version of that runs in production, at that point, we can provide services that are similar to a Google Analytics and really sort of put the link between the insights you get from prototyping and the insights you get out of the product and see where there's a potential mismatch between what you did in user testing and what people actually do once the thing is in production for a month, a year. But we don't take into account external data for the moment.
Okay, thank you.
I have one final question. You come out of the University of Brussels. Was it the result of internal research? How much time was spent on, before you actually got out? And is there an IP arrangement with the university?
So there is an IP arrangement with the university. There's not a lot I can say publicly, and that's not to say like, you have to sign an NDA. There's just not a lot I can say publicly. They're not in the equity table though, so we pay a royalty. It's an IP transfer, so we own the IP. That's an important part, but they're not in the equity table. It's based on research in a completely different context. Citizen science. So you have a group of people concerned about something in the environment. And today they use pen and paper because it's just too damn expensive to have an application built. And so we figured, can we make a tool that allows these people to build their own data collection systems, basically. That was the research of my co-founder. That was the initial version of Weavly. Why are we doing that today? There's two reasons. First of all, it's a tiny market in the sense that there's not a lot of citizen scientists out there. They're not well funded, otherwise they would just pay somebody to develop a system. And we think sort of ethically that it's not a market at all. These are VZW's that want to do good. I think it's not a good idea to have them pay us to develop platforms. So we switched to this market, which is a bit more niche in the software development, but which is a growing market. It's still our plan to do this on a sidetrack. So to keep a version of the platform open for citizen scientists. It's a sidetrack which we're not visiting right now because we have other stuff to do, but it's still in our plans though.
All right, clear. Thank you.
Can I add a question? How will you get to a worldwide market? Because Figma is in the world. Must have been a massive budget, no? This is marketing budget bigger than other budgets. You have an idea on this one?
So the fact that Figma is already worldwide and is growing insanely, we can piggyback on them. I think there's some great examples in Belgium of companies that did that. I think Deselect for Salesforce has shown you can piggyback on somebody else's technology and still be worth a lot of money, do really good business. And I think today, with sort of the entire Zoom and Teams being completely democratized, I've had sales calls. Yesterday, I had a sales call with a guy in Paris, half drunk at his cousin's wedding. I've had sales calls with people in Indonesia. It's sort of your cold outreach. It doesn't really matter anymore whether it's another Dutch guy or Dutch-speaking person or somebody across the world. There's the time zone difference, but okay, you just deal with that. I think it's easier today to scale internationally than it was pre-corona.
You have a piggyback plan then?
Well, the piggyback plan is to make sure that we're integrated into those communities and that the word of mouth is really important with designers. They love testing out tools and they love talking about tools. So we need to make sure that people love our product.
Yeah. What about the votes? Let's check the audience votes. Yes. So how likely would you recommend the solution of Weavly in your network? It's a good one.
It's a good NPS score.
Yes, yes. Definitely. And I hope it reflects also a bit the hands. You never know.
Okay.
Sir.
For the last time, can I ask you to show hands if you like this or would like to continue a discussion with these people? 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
We have 5.
6.
That's good one.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Check the hands. Do some talks, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
And the sales guy, I don't know.
5 or 6.
You'll manage. You'll manage. Perhaps you need a new CEO. That's yeah.
I can do both, huh?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Now I can do both, but at some point.
Give him a big hand. Florian, Weavly.